That was the first time for me watching the film on the big screen. I'm a little jittery still. It's a really good, really intense movie. You watched it with us.
I did.
Had it been a while since you'd seen it?
Oh, quite a long time, actually. It's so much fun to see it in a proper theater instead of on a TV screen. So I'm glad I waited. It was worth the wait, I must say.
Now, as you said in the intro, when this film came out, a sequel wasn't something you took for granted the way these days, if you make a movie, you have a plan in place. When you finished with Alien, did you ever think that you would revisit the character of Ripley?
I really didn't, and I think, and the first one felt really unique and complete, and it took someone, I think, from outside of our little group, actually, to have the vision to go, I have this idea for a story that will take it even further, and it's so magnificently constructed as a story, isn't it? It's just never stops. So no, we never thought. I mean, I guess eventually we probably would have thought of it, but I'm very glad that the person who thought of it first was Jim Cameron. Yeah.
And this is widely regarded as one of the greatest sequels ever made. One of those movies that, right? When you got that script, well, like what were the things that made you think like, yes, this could be something great?
The script was so amazing to read because I had no warning that there was even another movie. So I opened this script and from the very first moment, it just, the way that it set up the characters, the action, all the Marines, they're such wonderful characters and they're so beautifully played by everybody. It's just non-stop action and that's in the script. Minus the music and the sound effects, but I mean all of that adrenaline is in the script and it just blew me away. And also emotionally, we'd never really gotten to know Ripley in that way with all these different levels and it was just an incredible progression for the character. And I just loved her isolation in the beginning and the fact that she'd outlived everyone she knew and and the world she knew, and that yet the company doesn't change. It still has its same priorities. But I just love its, equal parts wickedness and innocence and, heart and brains. And the character of Bishop is so incredible and played so beautifully by Lance Henderson. It just kind of made me miss everybody, It was a pretty intense experience for us.
No, the first Alien is often described as a horror movie. Ripley is someone who fights for her own survival, and this is an action movie. But I think one of the great pleasures of it is that she does not start off as a kind of action-ready heroine. She is not a Marine, as she said. She's not a soldier. She is, for very good reason, very frightened about what's going to happen, and yet she pulls she takes action and learns to kind of take control of everything that happens. Can you speak a bit to the character going from trauma to basically being in charge?
Yes, I mean I think People in Danger is a great catalyst for Ripley, and certainly Newt, her courage and her, that she's earned the right to stay alive. And of course, it's not in this version, but Ripley had a daughter who she outlived, and so there was all that going on too. But I think I think in a situation like that, you figure out what to do next, and then you do that, and it's not, you don't have time for emotions or reflection. And maybe you don't want to have time for that. So action is the logical way to go. rather than throwing up your hands and waiting to be found and, made into a host. So, I mean, she's just sort of so galvanized by everything that happens, and so.
The aliens are, they have this kind of nightmare version of childbirth is how they reproduce with the chest bursters. But then you have, in the movie, it kind of like opposes that with this like kind of maternal relationship that Ripley has with Newt. And as you said in the director's cut, there's also details about Ripley's daughter that she kind of missed her whole life while she was like drifting in space. Do you see that this is a movie that's kind of about motherhood, that it's about that relationship, that's the emotional core?
Well, I think it even goes further than that to the Queen. There's even her desire to protect her creatures, and so I think the face-off between the two mothers in that what I think Jim called the Queen's Chambers or something is one of my favorite scenes. It was a little dizzying to shoot because I had so much responsibility. I had like 3 guns at that point. And I had like real stuntmen hanging around, and I had dummies hanging around. I had to make sure that I flamed the dummies, shot with blanks the stunt guys, and then used the bazooka or whatever it is. And it was very cathartic for someone who had been working for gun control a couple of you kind of get to like it.
This movie is, I think for very good reason, acclaimed for being one of the great and kind of very influential, having one of the influential female action leads. Woo! But it's also... But you've got actually more than one great female character here. You have Newt, who I think is fantastic. You have Vasquez.
Jeanette Goldstein, who is a redheaded, freckle-faced actress. I saw her at the premiere. I didn't even recognize her.
And you even have the Queen, the alien Queen. Was that something? I feel like in some ways movies are still playing catch-up to this one.
Maybe Jim was aware of all of the ramifications of that. I guess I was so grateful to have a role where I could kind of get the job done without being in some skimpy little costume, and it felt very real to me. It felt like I had to, as Ripley, become this warrior, which she was not. Even if she had a lot of mental strength, she had to learn as she went, just as all of us would have to in that situation. And to me, it is a great woman character, but I also feel by the end, there's a lot of everyman in the character that we can all relate to and that we're all rooting for. And I think that's just, Jim's brilliance in writing such a sort of seminal character. It was just, that's him, that's him.
You spoke a little about this before, but I think that this movie holds up so incredibly well, and part of that is a testament to just the staying power of great practical effects. And I know, you've worked with James Cameron, in fact, on a movie that like embodies, I think, the kind of like current cutting edge of visual effects, with motion capture and green screen. But I'm wondering if you could speak a bit to the experience of actually shooting with things in the room and things there, like these physical, does that change your approach in acting? Has it changed since?
I think the most important thing in these big action scenes is just to be very present. All your senses are very alive, sight and sound and taste and smell, everything is because you're like this. And the thing I remember about these big scenes is there's so many of us involved. There's such a huge crew. you know, there are puppeteers inside the Queen. There's a guy behind me in the power loader. We had to kind of walk together, and there's so much work that goes into every single shot. So it's very exciting for me to watch it with all of you because you clearly appreciated all the work went into it. But I think it's sort of given short shrift in this business, but you do learn a lot from doing a role like this because, again, you have to be so moment to moment. Can't take anything for granted, always have to be in the now, and I think that's just such a good training for an actor.
This movie and the franchise has, two great villains. You have the xenomorphs, who are these impossibly perfect predators, and then you have the Weyland-Yutani Corporation, which is one of the great evil mega conglomerates of science fiction. And I'm wondering if you think that the presence, and embodied, of course, with great sliminess by Paul Reiser in this movie. I'm wondering if you think the kind of resonance of the idea of this corporation that it's looming over all of the characters' lives is part of the reason the franchise continues to kind of have, so much meaning to people.
Well, I think that's true, and unfortunately, I think we have more corporations like Weyland-Yutani than we used to. There's such an emphasis on profit, and these speeches that come out of, Paul Reiser's mouth, you could read them in the paper tomorrow, You don't understand what we're doing here is really important, We need this, this is valuable, all this doesn't matter about human lives. I feel, if anything, our society is going more toward these big mega corporations, and it really resonates today. I think even more than it used to.
Ripley has never had a lot of, I've always loved that, her stories have never revolved around romance. She's had a lot of other things to take care of. And it rarely has worked out that well when it has come up. But you have such great chemistry with Michael Biehn in this movie, and that. And that relationship is such a great mixture of this mutual admiration for their shared competence and just a bit of flirtiness. And I'm wondering if you could speak to that.
Well, he's such a great guy, Michael, and he's so wonderful in this part, and I think the part of Hicks is just a beautifully written part of this very cool, Marine with great heart and strength and intelligence. In Neil Blomkamp's sequel to you see a lot more of them together. So you guys would like to see?
Yes!
Well, it'll happen. We have to wait till after Prometheus 2 is made, and then we get to start it.
We'll get there.
You worked with Neil Blomkamp in Chappie. You've worked with James Cameron multiple times. You've worked with Ridley Scott as well. Is that something that's important to you, to be able to have these ongoing collaborations with directors?
I love working with each of these directors. They're all so brilliant and unique in their own way, and it's really nice when you work with the same director again, because you kind of have a shorthand. You kind of have been in the trenches together before, and it's going to work out. You have to give it all you got. I'm always thrilled to work with. I actually just did something else with Neil in South Africa that I can't tell you much about, but again, it was so awesome. It's just such a kick-ass story. I'm so excited about it, and but eventually. And I certainly wish Ridley all the best with Prometheus 2 or whatever it's being called now, and I think if you do a good job, it's not really to me about the franchise, but that no one, I think, dared to do a sequel to Aliens. It's so impossible to top. And yet this has a very different world to it, and I think it's really compelling, and I'm very excited about it. But each one of these directors is so unique, and they have a vision that's just very special. I think especially you can see it when a director personal film.
I wanted to ask you, because it's kind of come up today in the news, that a bit about like Ripley's look, because she is one of the rare, I think, still rare women in an action movie who is actually dressed for doing action and not, wearing thigh-high boots and a battle corset.
That's in the next one, though.
Can you tell me a bit about, being actually dressed for action and kind of not necessarily having, your character being prioritized for getting glammed up? She doesn't need to be.
No, it's an interesting thing. I mean, working with Jim, he's so, he loves women. He loves women as they are, just the whole gorgeous, natural woman. And he has such a great record of, creating these amazing parts. And, it just never even, for me, I would never have wanted to go there. I don't want to horrify the audience. I'm sure I wore a little makeup. You can see it sometimes, but I mean, it has to be real. I mean, you wouldn't be thinking about any of those things. So, and I was so happy to work with a director. All of these directors, none of them would ever say, well, I think, maybe if you, that it would be more attractive if you did it this way or something. No one, has ever said that to me, and I don't think I'd take it well. And I love the honesty of just her and what she has to do. I feel very blessed that I was working with a director who just wanted that, And I remember I said that to my husband, who's here tonight. When you're going down the elevator, I remember we talked about that moment where she has to, put the guns together and kind of transform into this warrior. And it was such a great moment. And I don't think I anticipated what a powerful transition that was in the movie. Because I'm basically just taking the elevator down. But at the time, even in those shots, I felt that something was happening to Ripley, that she was kind of really arming herself inside as well as outside.
I know that the actors who played the Marines did some training together. They did like a boot camp, a mini boot camp. What did you do to prepare? And did you kind of feel like you were coming to them as the person, the newcomer that Ridley was when coming to this group?
Well, I would have loved to do that with them, actually, but I was working on a movie called Half Moon Street that finished like the Friday before. So I missed the whole, I missed that whole process, but it's probably for the best, where all the Marines kind of became a unit and they figured out their costumes and they figured out who did what, and I think it was very, very important for them to have those 2 or 3 weeks. And it was sort of perfect that I come in from nowhere and I don't know anything, and I might as well have been asleep. But I didn't get that. I was sort of catapulted into the world, and in fact, I'd read the script so quickly and I'd been so busy that I get excited when I read a script. I don't always read all the stage directions. And so very early on, we had this scene suddenly where it was all about guns. And I said, well, Jim, I'm so sorry. I don't think I quite noticed all this gun stuff. I'm really against guns. I really am for gun control. And he said, I think you better reread the script, reading the stage directions. Of course, it's all guns all the time. And then he sent me off to practice with the machine gun and the flamethrower and all that stuff. And as I said, a couple of sessions of that, and then you kind of are digging it, so so much for my principles. But I mean, in the real world, I am still for gun control.
Did you have a favorite of the different options? Because the flamethrower looks pretty sweet.
I have to tell you that Jim Cameron designed those guns. He designed the smart guns, which they're carrying. These guns are so heavy, and when you tape them all together, they're really heavy. And so that's all I could remember was the stair. We were at the Acton Power Station in the winter outside of London. It was very wet and very cold, and I just remember trying to go down these slippery stairs with a lit flamethrower day after day after day. We were there quite a long time, and that's what I remember. I went, God, I'm so glad that that's done. But no, it was cool.
This movie costs $18 million, I believe, which is a number that, like, even with inflation, I think sounds low compared to budgets these days. And I guess I was just wondering if it was like a 10-month shoot, I believe. If you have any other kind of memories that come up, or maybe that came up while watching the movie again from the production.
Maybe the whole pre-production and production was 10 months, but I think we started shooting the end of October, and I think we were finished by the end of February. So all of that other work was done without us. But what was the question? I'm so sorry.
If you have any strong memories from the production, or any that came up when you were watching the movie.
You just feel part of such an incredible crew. You know that if one of the reasons people love to work with Jim Cameron, even though he's very exacting, is that you have to bring your best game. He won't accept anything less, certainly not from himself or from anyone, really. But it's also tremendously exciting and inspiring. We actually had a kind of difficult time in England because Ridley Scott had directed the first one, the crew, because Terminator had not come out in England, I don't think. It had come out in America. So the crew was sort of like, what the fuck is this guy, this Canadian guy, walking in the footsteps of the great Ridley Scott? And Jim Cameron kept trying to set up screenings for them to watch Terminator so they could see that he actually knew what he was doing. And maybe Piranha 2 too, I don't know, but and they never went. And it took them 2 or 3 weeks before they realized how lucky they were to be working with this guy. But he had to fight. He had to fight to get them to sort of make that, to accept him, I think. We had an AD who kept calling him governor. And he'd say, please don't call me governor. And the guy would say, all right, governor. And it really pissed him off. So we had, and Gail Ann Hurd was right there. They'd just gotten married too. And so they were awesome together. And Gail especially, because it was a tense shoot. There was a lot to get done. And it was big and dangerous, and everyone needed to be really frosty. But Gail really, I remember one meeting where she just took over, and she was just so cool and calm, very Ripley-like, just doing what a good producer does, which is just sort of very diplomatically making it all everyone go in the same direction.
You have starred in some iconic sci-fi movies and one great sci-fi spoof in Galaxy Quest. I'm wondering what your relationship has been like to the genre, especially now that it's kind of ascended to one of the primary ones that you find in the theater these days. I like science fiction more and more, because to me it's like one of the few spaces in the business where you can actually tell a really original story. And I don't think it gets any respect
in the business yet. You know, feel like critics don't know how to review these movies. They don't understand all the thinking behind them. They don't appreciate what Jim Cameron says, that this is an exploration of what it is to be human. This is an exploration of what happens when you don't take care of climate change and all these other things. This is an exploration of the future as it may be, and I think it's a really exciting genre. And science fiction is kind of a strange term for it. It's so old-fashioned. I don't know. You guys should come up with another one. But anyway, it's sci-fi, and I've become more and more interested in it just as an earthling, because I feel like we're beginning to think of ourselves as a planet, and we are actually probing, you know, Alpha Centauri and all this stuff. So space is becoming more and more of a place where we could actually go and live, and I hope we don't have to do that because we screw up our own planet. But anyway, to me, sci-fi becomes more and more immediate the longer I live.
I think we have some microphones set up for questions for the audience. But before we do that, I did want to ask you as well, what do you think happened to Jones the cat?
That's a good question. I think I got him a good home. Maybe one of my cellmates on that nasty corridor I'm living in. And I think then when we get back, we pick up Jones, and then there's the three of us, maybe the four of us. I don't know.
Do we have questions? Oh, we have a line. We don't have a line. We don't have a line, but we have microphones. I'll let you guys pick.
Hi, my name's Tamar Baines, and I just want to tell you this is the first time. It's been a while since I've seen Aliens, since I've been on active duty and I've just retired. And after 2 tours in Iraq, I just want to say that your portrayal of PTSD is so realistic. It was actually kind of difficult watching that because it reminded me a lot of my 2 tours to Iraq, and I just want to say you did a great portrayal of that. And also, like, having to get over it and get the job done. So I just want to thank you, and just a great role model for me since I've served and stuff like that.
Thank you, that means a lot to me. Thanks for coming.
One more?
Hi. Right here?
Balcony? Over here. Okay, thank you so much. I just wanted to say that it's a great honor to be here with you today. And I wanted to ask, what do you think are going to be some of the challenges that you're going to face in the future being Ripley?
You mean in space?
The next movie.
There are a lot more challenges in Neil's sequel, but I can't discuss it. But it was really fun to, it's going to be very satisfying. You know, I kind of felt like we left the character after 4, it was all going to end up on Earth, and I didn't want to end up on Earth. I just thought, ugh, you know, Earth. So it seemed so mundane to me compared to the beauty of space. So, you know, we kind of just left the whole story hanging, and I'd always sort of felt a little incomplete to me, like, you know, and so when Neil Blomkamp started to talk to me about a sequel to this movie, I thought, gosh, that would be so great to know that Ripley has a resting place, kind of, eventually. And wouldn't it be great to end the series like that? Not that the other two didn't happen, but that they're sort of parallel. I love them all, but I just thought, you can't, the filmmaker has to be inspired by what he's inspired by, and what he grew up with, and I think wore the tapes out of, were Alien 1 and 2 in South Africa. So anyway, we'll see what happens.
Hi, Sigourney. It's a huge honor. Thank you. Right here. Right here. Down here. My question is, have you ever played or watched gameplay footage from Alien Isolation? Woo! And if so, what are some of the similarities you see, given your unique perspective as the person behind Ellen, the similarities between Amanda Ripley and Newt and their relationships to Ellen?
Well, I did participate in Alien Isolation, and I did get to experience, in a horrible, eerie way, walking through that world, and I think it was terrifically, fantastically put together by these Scottish guys to really put you on that ship. I don't know much about Amanda. I'm sorry she's gone to space in a way as her mother, but oh, these kids. No, but I hear it's really cool. I have not played it because I feel in a way that I don't want to go back to the ship. But I'm really glad that people are enjoying it, and that it is really spooky and really immediate, and I'm glad that people get to experience what I experienced in their own home.
Hello. Wow. It's really great to meet you, Miss Weaver. I am a huge fan of Alien. Alien and Ghostbusters are two of my favorite movies, and I love both of those. And I wanted to ask you, I've read that apparently you absolutely despise, like I'm sure many people in this room, the Alien versus Predator movies.
Well, I haven't seen them.
Oh yeah.
Because I heard also that the alien doesn't beat the predator, and I thought, well, fuck that.
So I was kind of wondering that, let's say there was a movie that combined, say, Alien, Star Wars, Star Trek, Planet of the Apes, all 2001, all those great science movies. Would you maybe have a cameo in that, if you had the choice?
Make a cameo in what? Sorry. In what? Oh. I don't know that that's an Alien, Star Wars, Star Trek. No, I think probably not. Keep them distinct. Maybe as a comedy.
Mic went. Oh, there we go.
What would you say is the difference between working with Cameron and Ridley Scott on the two Alien movies?
Well, Ridley operated the camera. He and Derek Van Linde, who is the cinematographer, were... I was always with these two guys. even in very small spaces, it was always Ridley and Derek, and it was one of the ways in which they, I think, had to be very innovative about the camera shots, because there were situations where they had to come up with a whole new way of shooting. So that was really exciting. Ridley also doesn't like to rehearse, so that when you watch the first one, we're improvising a lot. We really don't know what's going to happen. There were things that people changed from the script a lot, you know. Whereas Ridley was great. You know, he really looks for the truth. He really looks for something very visceral and real to him. He's got a real bullshit detector. Jim Cameron, because he wrote the script, it's just, and he didn't operate the camera. We had at least 2 operators, but he was mostly in charge of everything else. So they're really, really both brilliant and both very different. I think Jim Cameron really likes working with actors, and at that point, I think Ridley, again, I think he just wanted to sort of turn us loose on each other and see what happened. And I think it worked really well for the film, and I think now he does enjoy working with actors and casts great actors in all kinds of things. Yeah, no, they're very, very different, each incredible in their own way, and a great privilege and joy for me to work with both of them, especially to be able to work with them more than once.
All right, I think we have time for one more.
Question in the orchestra? Is the mic on? Okay, Ms. Weaver?
Good evening, Ms. Weaver. I was just wondering, in Ghostbusters, I was a little disappointed that there wasn't at least one small cameo of aliens in Ghostbusters. At least even a minor one.
Well, that's very nice of you to say. I think we kind of had our hands full with Slimer and the other ones, and I think it would have made it even more complicated for us if we'd had an alien ghost around. But it's an interesting idea for Ghostbusters 4. Ghostbusters meets the alien.
All right, and with that, we're going to call it a night.